Yo, how you doing, guys? It's me, Tony here, and I'm back with another video. Have you ever wondered how people lived back in the Middle Ages? Well, here you go. The feudal system was used between the 9th and 15th centuries. The reason this system existed was because the huge majority of Europe were trees. Just imagine, endless rows and rows of trees. That was Europe. This allowed ambitious people to carve out a kingdom out of the land. Literally, with axes they were chopping up trees to get farmland. Anyways, at the bottom is the humble serf. How it worked was that these guys signed a contract with the local nobleman or vassal, which binds them to the land but gives them a steady food supply. Now you may be thinking, wow, that's fucked up. But you also have to think about it. Back then, before the Renaissance, the common people were much more poor in comparison. So now it was either being a serf or leave and carve out a kingdom for yourself. But the thing is, that was basically impossible by yourself. If you were born into a situation like this, your hands were tied really. Because one, you didn't intake a lot of protein, which means you are very physically unfit. And two, you don't have axes. This isn't Minecraft where you can punch a tree down. You need well-crafted metal axes and a lot of time and effort just to cut one tree down. And even if you somehow magically chop down all the trees, now you have the stumps. Now the stumps left you quite stumped, because if you don't remove them, you can't make farmland. You need a horse or two plus very strong men just to remove one stump. And the horses were way more expensive than axes because they costed a fortune and were expensive to maintain. Then you also need a horse to help till the land and money to buy the plants. And while you are waiting months until harvest, what the hell are you going to eat? And now let's say magic, and you have harvest and you harvested the crops magically. Who are you going to sell the food to? You don't have any connections. And what if a nearby kingdom attacked? Now you can see why it's way easier to sign your life away. The serfs hardly owned anything and had to give a big chunk of the food up to the vassal or nobleman that actually owned the land. Being a serf sucked, man. Not only did you have to do back-breaking labor day in, day out, but you were heavily malnutritioned. You didn't eat meat, and you could not build any generational wealth. But without a doubt, these are the most important guys. Food was not nearly a convenience like it is now, which is why when the Black Death came around and like half of these guys were wiped out, everyone started freaking the fuck out. Because now there was a lot less food going around. What happened then? Basic supply and demand. The ones that survived were actually paid and owned a piece of that land that they worked on. That's how bad the labor situation was. It actually turned out really nice for them afterwards, but anyways, yeah, it was pretty rough before then. Next on the food chain are the local gangs. Their job was to keep the serfs in line from organizing a rebellion. They also usually harassed them as well, because that's the sort of thing that happened back then. These guys rarely hung around the castle or fort and lived in huts like the serfs. They had weapons, but usually of low quality, and rarely did they have armor because that was expensive back then. They would make their rounds, making sure everything's in check, harass the serfs, and typical gang stuff. They did eat meat occasionally, but they were only a little stronger than the serfs. These guys were pretty rare unless your kingdom was a big shot, but generally you had some of these guys setting shop. But we are talking about tailors, cobblers, blacksmiths, painters, architects. These guys were actually a big deal. I mean, think about it. Back then, you can't just pop down to Nike and buy a new set of shoes for $40. Someone had to handcraft your shoe or sandal or armor. Sometimes it could take hours to make a pair of sandals. Even back then, kings only had around 3 to 4 pair of tops. Same thing with cloaks, shirts, especially armor and paintings. Today, if you were lazy, you can take a snap on your phone and frame it. But then, it was a process that could take hours to weeks trying to craft the painting and paint. It was also expensive. The canvas, the paint, the brush, all of these are handcrafted. These services came at prices that would bankrupt us today. Most serfs have 1 or 2 shirts. That's it. A rag cloak to travel in? Forget about it. You're looking at a month's worth of serf work to get that, not including their expenses. And that's just a cloak. Actual plate and chainmail armor could only be afforded by the elite classes. Most foot soldiers just got issued a spare no armor. Even reading was a big skill you could make money off for back then. Not even some knights knew how to read, so you could read letters and such to them or whatever the fuck. During the Renaissance, the autism population skyrocketed. But while the serfs were the backbone of the medieval world, the artisans were the needed skilled talent. Before we continue, I just want to say this video is sponsored by... I'm just fucking with you. You think a channel with less than 50 subs can get sponsorship? Forget about it. Alright, back to the video. Now we had the knights. These were the muscles of the vassals. In the big castle where the vassal lived were the knights' round table. The knights were in charge of the gangs, making sure they didn't push their luck. The knights were well equipped to deal with these gangs. These gangs are untrained, getting into the occasional skirmish, and had low quality gear and only sometimes ate meat. The knights trained every single day in sparring combat. They had high quality gear and were armored from head to toe. They ate a lot of meat and were usually much taller and more muscular than the average person back then. They usually were the descendants of lords, nobles, or someone else important. Being a full-fledged knight, you were a big fucking deal. If the knight was especially wealthy, they even had an assistant called a squire, who was basically their personal butlers. You were in the top 90 to 95% of people back then if you were a knight. The noble class were people who really owned the land. We're talking about multiple generations of ownership. They could have also been ambassadors, politicians, someone important, but they take the majority share of the land's profits and kick up a good amount to the next guy on the chain. These guys had mixed relationships with the knights. While they did bribe knights, it was a big gamble. While the knights did have a lot of control over the gangs, these guys were the ones who usually used gangs to get their work done. Knights most of the time worked only for the next guy, and only sometimes recognized the nobleman's rank. Some noblemen could even sponsor a knight and give him armor, good connections, and other cool stuff. Hey, did you know that one like a day keeps the doctor away? Like the fucking video, you mook. Now, the vassals were the ruler and figurehead of that pocket of region. Everything that happened there was on his head. He had the knights as his elite muscles, and the local gangs and even the serfs as his shock troops. It's kind of like a big fish, small pond situation. They were the big fish of that whole pond. They got respect from everyone, and the nobles would kick up a good share of the wealth. Think of them as kind of like a mini king. At this level, they had a certain amount of independence, you could call it. They also had a certain relationship with the lord of the land. The lord is usually the biggest vassal or the one with the most military power. The relationship between lord and vassal becomes much more political compared to the previous tiers. But they are the most powerful person in the entire region. Also, a kingdom or king was just a lord whose region of influence or population group has a certain amount. A king usually has alliances with about 8 vassals. Now, the relationship between lord and vassal was a very complex one. To keep it simple, all the vassals have alliances with the lord. The agreement is that in exchange for the vassal kicking up a certain percentage of food or wealth to the lord, if the vassal's territory is attacked, the lord will assist, and also the other way around. But where it gets interesting is, let's say you're a vassal. When an invading lord or kingdom with more manpower comes to your doorstep, you have a choice. You can betray your lord and join that guy's forces, and if you win, they spare your land. Or you can say no and try to hold down until your guys' forces arrive. Now you guys might be wondering, why was it like this? Well, the answer is big naval trade. See, before the Renaissance, there was not a lot of naval trade. Naval trade was faster, less dangerous, and could carry much more stuff than land trade. Well, until then, no one saw a real use for it. And as a result, everyone was nearly landlocked, which made resources very scarce. That is until Spain came back from the Americas with heaps of gold and silver and other stuff. Then everyone started building ships to get rich. And when they started trading with each other, everyone got what they needed because people in different areas needed different things. This, along with the circulated metals from Spain, made everyone rich. That's why the biggest powers were cities who were at the coasts. Florence, Rome, Venice. That's why when you go to Rome, you see so much marble, so much gold in their down-the-street churches, because they had money to make them. That's what really sparked the Renaissance. Whoa! We gotta talk about something real quick. Do you know how long it took me to make this video? Way too fucking long. I'm juggling YouTube, a job, and full-time college. And I didn't go to fucking clown college like you mooks, so I'm struggling here. Please drop a like if you like this video. I got bills to pay and this shit will help lighten the load. Also, join the Discord in the description and give me video ideas or whatever the fuck. Hey, yo, yo. If you're watching this, I just want to thank you so much for reaching here. It's been a while, but I ain't giving up on this YouTube shit. I'll see you next time.